In the previous video, we concluded that the migration and integration into wider European society of Moors made refugees by the Crusades' consequential Moorish expulsion and Inquisition, as well as travellers, traders, explorers, and diplomats, will have been aided in their integration by the Moorish culture and skills inherited from that Moorish culture that they contributed to the places they found themselves in, that were not common to those regional cultures that they integrated into and thus considered rare and valuable to those societies, means by which the competing European kingdoms could boost their local economies and industries and gain the upper hand on one another. Moors arriving as possessors of these trades who decided by their own autonomy whether or not to impart their distinct skills onto European peoples and their respective cultures, or whether to keep them to themselves, can be observed in multiple recorded instances, a minority of which are laid out and elaborated on by Dr. Onyeka Nubia in his 2013 Blackamoors. Introducing this paradigm of Moorish artificers and the status they attained by the merit of their skills, Onyeka states on page 109 that the presence of Africans on the coat of arms of a number of European aristocratic families, and some in England, underlines the connection between Africans and Europeans. In other words, as J.A. Rogers has suggested, this iconography is more than a display of the fantastic or strange, but this iconography is not always easy to explain, such as with the African man depicted on the coat of arms of the tomb of the 16th century English knight Sir Thomas Sonds, who fought in Europe. He died on the 8th of February 1592 and was from Throwley in Kent. Briefly digressing, I might point out that Thomas Sonds was a royalist knight who fought for Charles I during the English Civil Wars, possessing a Moorish crest, not altogether unlike other royalist knights who also adorn Moorish crests in their coats of arms, such as Silius Titus of Bushey, an English politician, captain of Deal Castle, and groom of the bedchamber to King Charles II and an organiser in the attempted escape of King Charles I from Carisbrooke Castle, and who wrote in the 1657 pamphlet Killing No Murder, calling for the assassination of Oliver Cromwell. Other notable English knights possessing Moorish crests include John II de Grailly, who played a decisive role as a cavalry leader under Edward, the Black Prince, in the Battle of Poitiers in 1356. His Moorish crest can be observed inherited by Gaston de Foix Grailly, a Knight of the Garter, in 1438. Returning to the point at hand, Onyeka elaborates with continued reference to Moors in heraldry such as these, that some of these connections are difficult to decipher, but we know that Africans were present throughout Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries, and that they were employed by continental Europeans. Some of these Africans came to England with their employers and were recorded in English records as servants. Other African servants, such as Francis, may simply have been employed by a Dutch or Frenchman, but had been born in England or elsewhere. But all of these African servants, once in England, and if they had skills, are likely to have become part of their employers' exclusive professions and their privileged sodality. For example, Francis worked for a Peter Miller, a Dutch beer brewer living in St. Hallows, Barking, London in 1568. Francis is described as a nagar and Miller's servant in records contained in the Barking Parish Register and the parish clerk's memorandum daybook. He was buried at the age of 31 on the 3rd of March 1596 or 7 at East Smithfield, Clerkenwell, London. Francis was buried with the best cloth and had 4 bearers at his funeral, which suggests he had been a valued employee in a beer brewing profession which few people in England had access to. This is because the beer brewing profession was organized by a small number of very exclusive guilds and secret societies, mostly run by Dutch immigrants who employed only a few trusted employees who could keep their secrets. Without inquiring as to who these Dutch immigrants were and why they chose to let Africans into their inner circle, in a European society that our presentist retrospection leads us to presume was oh so very bigoted, we might also look to other industries besides the beer-making industry, such as England's needle-making industry. On page 132 of Blackamoor's, Onyeka begins that line of inquiry, with brief reference to 3 Moors addressed on the same page who, for context, bear little relevance to the needle industry specifically. Amongst the Iberian Africans present in Europe, there were many industrious, skillful artificers, although in Tudor England, in the case of Catherine, Fernandez and Francis, their skills are not explicitly stated. But the Tudor records for the St. Botolph area of London reveal a group of skilled Iberian Africans whose talents seem to have been more openly talked about. Interestingly, St. Botolph is the same area where, according to my research, Africans may have constituted 6% of the total population by the end of the 16th century. Continuing on the same page with brief reference to Mary, daughter of a Moorish basket and shovel maker, who likewise bears little relevance to the needle industry, Onyeka states. Mary may have been connected to other Iberian Africans who also lived in the St. Botolph without Aldgate area of London. These include a Susanna Pearls, Susanna Pyrrhus, perhaps the same person, and Simon Valencia. Their parish records reveal that they are living side by side as tenants, servants or both, with a further man, John Despinois, living amongst them who may have also been an Iberian African. It is possible that Simon and perhaps Susanna and Susanna were from Valencia. In Simon's case, this is not just because of his name, but it is also related to his occupation, as his burial record of the 20th of August, 1593 says he is a servant to Stephen, illegible, a needlemaker. Valencia was a large and important city in Moorish-dominated Spain. The artisans of this city were internationally known for being metal workers and needlemakers in particular. This may indicate that Simon was part of this industrious Iberian culture before he came to England and was now merely continuing his art, but more quietly. Nevertheless, Simon is not the first Iberian African noted as being part of the needle-making industry of Tudor England. The first is an unnamed African living in England between 1545 and 1553 in Cheapside, London. The African was an independent craftsman making fine Spanish needles, but would never teach his art to any. In the book Birmingham and Midland Hardware District, the authors make an important claim. They suggest that this unnamed African was the first person to bring the art of making fine steel needles to England. This idea is reiterated in John Bromley's The Armorial Bearing of the Guild, where the author claims that the original reference to this man comes from the Tudor historian Stowe in his Annals. However, in the 1592 copy of Stowe's book, there is no mention of this Negro. It is only in those accounts of the Annals, written in and after 1615 by George Buch and Edmund Howes, that this African is mentioned. It means that the entry by this man was probably written by them retrospectively and not by Stowe. But why Stowe did not mention this African is difficult to explain. It seems that Buch and Howes were more effective at gathering information than their predecessor. This idea is substantiated by the fact that it is actually William Harrison in 1577 who first mentions this African. In his description of England, he says, "Spanish needles was first taught in England by Elias Groes, a German, about the 8th year of Queen Elizabeth, and in Queen Marie time, there was a Negro made fine Spanish needles in Cheapside, but would never teach his art to any. This shows that by the time that the later writers came to talk about this African, his name may have been forgotten, but his skill and art were not. This becomes even more evident when we explore a 19th century reference to this African, which adds to our understanding. The account is in Haydon's dictionary. Needles were first made in England in Cheapside, London, in the time of Mary I, by a Negro from Spain, but was lost at his death, and not recovered till 1566 in the reign of Elizabeth. Haydon seems to have come to similar conclusions as those I have reached here. These are that the African was from Spain, lived in Cheapside, and had skills which no one else had, and that the knowledge he had was temporarily lost. What Haydon adds is a date when this happened, 1566. The evidence gathered so far from the 16th century and after seems to overwhelmingly show that this Negro was a real person living and working in Tudor England. In trying to discover more about this African, I examined the parish records in East Smithfield, London. In those records, there is a Martin Black who was buried on the 17th of January, 1587. He was the son of Richard Black, a needlemaker. The word black by itself would not prove that he was connected to the needle-making Negro, but it is because Bush, Howes and the other historians claim that until 1566 this was a skill only known to this African, that the word black becomes significant. Perhaps it denotes some relationship between this family and the skilled African, but without more evidence, it would be difficult to say conclusively. The needlemaker's ability to monopolize his trade would have given the Moor great leverage within society, which, if capitalized upon to its greatest extent, may have led to an increase in power, to further still, significant power. Hence, the monopolization or concentration of crafts and others like them within Moorish families or families descended from Moors could have allowed those families, in developing their power, to likewise develop a closer proximity to the ruling classes of their region and even become them, thus birthing the legacy of Moorish ethnic heritage observable in the mixed ethnic phenotypes of nobility in portraiture, albeit whitewashed or obscure, that align with descriptions of them in terms that might be synonymous with a Moorish African heritage. Swarthy, dark-skinned, Habsburg jaw, subnasal prognathism, Austrian lip, or just straight-up black, may, like the surname Black Prior, be arguably related to a native African ethnic identity, as opposed to the handful of other black characteristics such as eye or hair color, or even religious connotations, which, whilst valid, are far less prominent, rare and exclusive than skin color, and thus deserving of a surname. The notorious Captain Blackbeard, who earned the nickname on account of his black facial hair, wasn't simply nicknamed Captain Black on account of that feature. The adjective alone would have likely been too vague, and the physical feature of his beard not so prominent within the situation and time period he lived, that it could be referenced by its colour alone. Following suit, we should begin to determine what physical features could be so prominent as to be referenced by the mere name of its colour. Occam's razor would determine skin colour to be the first and most obvious among those attributes. In part 3, we'll begin to unpack specific examples of this paradigm.